Welcome back to discussion 6 on the HealthCare.gov wrap-up. This is Don Schaefer, and this is the final discussion in session 3 of the SWEBOK applied to HealthCare.gov, and this is also the final discussion in our MOOC, how to stop writing embarrassing software code. When we look at the overall case study, we looked at this main diagram that has been used throughout the course and talked about the problems with HealthCare.gov. One of the main problems for the overall system was just the fact that there was no way that they used any kind of software engineering practices. What we've talked about in the 15 knowledge areas with the SWEBOK is just not part and parcel of what was used when they did HealthCare.gov. The contractors didn't use it. The federal government didn't use it. It was just unknown to everyone within that whole government arena. When we look at the life cycle for HealthCare.gov, there were many questions and concepts and discussions. Lots of folks said, well, they used this old-fashioned waterfall model, or they used an agile model or something else. But the reality of it was there really wasn't any process put in place for how they did the overall life cycle. There was no life cycle that they talked about. Though what they were left with was basically this idea of the baseline waterfall, and that's only used notionally. It's basically what I've used to say, here's how things fit. So when I look at where the SWEBOK fits, we've talked about this before in a number of places. Here's where here's all our knowledge areas, and we talked about the front end. Here's the front end in here, where we looked at the software requirements, software design, parts of construction, configuration management, and the other KAs, the process KAs. We broke them down into both front end, or basically code in the front end, and process in the front end, and we talked about all of those. We also talked about where the SWEBOK fits within the development phase. Here's where the 500 million lines of code were generated. Now we'll talk a little bit more about that on the wrap-up. There probably weren't coders. They didn't have 1,000 coders writing 1,000 lines of code a week to get it done. So it was reuse of a lot of different tools that were in place. And then finally we looked at the back end. And the back end is what the HealthCare.gov is living with now. They finished the integration. Now they're going into operations and maintenance. So that's the major area they're at now. And also remember, in the maintenance phase, they said, well, we're going to start out just fixing it by adding 5 or changing 5 million more lines of code. So that's going to be an interesting process. So here's all of our knowledge areas. Let's talk about the current state of HealthCare.gov. And the current state of HealthCare.gov is, as of today, the 26th of February, 2014. The launch was supposed to have been about 3 months ago. I'm going to talk about that, and this is where we set that time frame. Here's where we are on the current status and trying to find it. Also, as you can see over here in the knowledge areas are all hyperlinked. There'll be a PDF document that'll be available with the active hyperlinks for each one of these, and that's going to be posted so it's available to all of you so you can look at it yourself. The software requirements. CMS is still building the computer system that automatically pays, insures, and reconciles enrollment information between carriers and government. And CMS is the agency, the bureau under Health and Human Services that is responsible for HealthCare.gov. It's one of the back-end systems that took a backseat as HHS struggled to repair the HealthCare.gov user experience. Although insurers are getting paid through a workaround system, it only captures consumers who get a tax subsidy to help pay for their coverage. So it's not a comprehensive accounting of every enrollee. The problem is going to be within a very short period of time as people get on the system and start racking up bills that have to be paid for by the health company or by the insurance companies. They're not going to get paid because these requirements weren't so much missed but put on the back burner. Software design. The Obama administration on Monday, and that was the Monday of this week, said people hoping to enroll in healthcare coverage for March 1st may have trouble applying by Saturday's deadline because of a planned 62-hour maintenance shutdown of the Social Security Administration computer system. When you do your software design, you put in place all of the interface systems you've got to work with. They recognize that the Social Security Administration was one of those interfaces, but you also look at risk, and part of that design risk is, are your systems available? This one's not going to be available. It's going to be, just an insane issue that all of healthcare is brought down because we've got a 62-hour maintenance window. Software construction. Healthcare Finder API, the application programming interface, accepts an XML request via post and returns XML as response. All requests to the API are currently stateless. What that isn't here and is talking about is that within HealthCare.gov itself, you can go get the API. You can download the API and you can have access to all the data. All the data that's open and available, basically the data about healthcare plans. So all of this information is available, and it's also available on GitHub. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Software testing. While several software glitches have been featured on the evening news, I can't recall any that have caused a national conversation about the process of building and testing software until HealthCare.gov. Suddenly Americans are sitting at their kitchen tables in suburbs, in offices, in cities, on farms, and talking about quality issues with a website. So although this is a testing fiasco and a problem, it got a lot of attention, and software engineering is becoming better known now. Software construction. Everything will be available on GitHub, meaning the entire code base will be available for use. The Atlantic, June 2013. That's true. In fact, I just got on GitHub today and downloaded a set of the source code. I'm going to look through it and use it for a little bit of research, but it is available. Now, it's not totally maintained. It's from 8 months ago, but it is a software version, and there's multiple versions of that. You can get the software if you want to download it, and you can look at the source code. The majority of the code is written in things like JSON, which is the JavaScript notation. A lot of it's in Java. So there's lots of different pieces and parts that you can look at, but it's available to look at as opposed to the requirements documents and design documents. Software configuration management. There's multiple archives on the HealthCare.gov. HealthCare.gov / archive is the place to get it. So you can actually look at the configurations. Now, this is not a formal configuration management system that we would think of. This is just an archive of those things. Knowledge Area 7, software engineering management. Some people eminently involved in the project seriously doubted the agency had the in-house capacity to handle such a mammoth technical task. I kept this the same as what we talked about last time when we talked about some of the problem areas. I think this is really telling in that there was no real good software engineering management done. The KA8, Software Engineering Process, and K89, the Software Engineering Models and Methods, they're not hyperlinked because they are related right back to the SWEBOK. There really was no software engineering process. Incremental, iterative, and agile models can deliver early subsets of working software into the user environment if desired. There's a lot of argument in the press about, did they use waterfall, did they use agile, what did they use for the process? It doesn't matter. They didn't use a process. So when you look at how to do that, refer back to the SWEBOK and you'll get some good ideas as to how I want to do those processes. The same way with Knowledge Area 9, the Software Engineering Models and Methods. Some of the essentials of models, again quoting from the SWEBOK. Good models do not usually represent every aspect or feature of the software under every possible condition. Modeling typically involves developing only those aspects or features of the software that need specific answers, abstracting away any non-essential information. This approach keeps the models manageable and useful. It's really good to look at that as part of the model essentials, something to keep in mind as you use software models, something that would have been good if the software engineering, or the HealthCare.gov folks had bothered to look at the SWEBOK. KA10, software quality. Here's another quote. I'll leave it to journalists to report the decisions behind an immutable October 1 go-live date regardless of the operational consequences. As a result of these and other decisions, the health and quality of the software in HealthCare.gov suffered from the engineering equivalent of medical malpractice. I can't say any more about it than that. It was software malpractice. Software engineering professional practice. Accenture, the contractor urgently tapped to help fix the federal healthcare website, is a favorite of corporate America but has a record that includes troubled projects and allegations of ethical lapses. A review of the consulting giant's history shows that. During the past decade, nearly 30 Accenture projects in the United States and abroad have encountered problems, including technical malfunctions and cost overruns. I don't know whether HealthCare.gov has gone from the frying pan into the fire as they've switched main contractors. Let's look at Knowledge Area 12, the software engineering economics. Cloud computing costs, and this is just from today, cloud computing costs for HealthCare.gov more than quintupled original estimates. CMS released documents for its IT contract with Verizon Telemark, which is running the cloud component of HealthCare.gov on Thursday of last week. The latest documents, which were reported by NextGov.com, explain that the original contract had ballooned from $10.8 million to $59.9 million since 2011. They didn't look at the economics of this. They didn't do any testing on that. Computing foundations. Agency officials have no way of knowing how many people have taken that advice, start the enrollment process over again. According to two individuals familiar with the situation, the computer system containing the scanned appeals forms cannot yet communicate with HealthCare.gov's enrollment database, so it's impossible to cross-check the information. When you look at computing foundations, you want to be able to have an end-to-end process that works. This one doesn't. Mathematical foundations. Here's a little quote on the mathematical foundation. We start looking at data mining and looking at the data reports that we get back from HealthCare.gov. What's interesting is don't collect numbers for the sake of collection. Have a narrative for each data point you care about. Ask for details of the black boxes you use. What are the inputs and what are the outputs? How's the information being used? What are the sources of uncertainty? How is the model being tested to see if it correlates to reality? You should need a PhD in math to understand the system at that level. And if you do, then your data guy is hiding something from you. Really good concept to keep in mind from the mathematical foundations. If you don't understand it, somebody's probably hiding something. And finally, the engineering foundations. Newtown, PA, February 5th. EPAM Systems releases an official statement today that, contrary to recent online blog posts issued by various outlets, EPAM has never been involved in software development for HealthCare.gov website or any Affordable Care Act related engagements. Any claims to the contrary are completely false. So, people are out there in the engineering and making sure they disavow any connection to HealthCare.gov because it's not a project you want to be attached to. That's it. That's our HealthCare.gov wrap-up. That's the end of Session 3 and the end of the MOOC. I want to thank you very much for participating in this. I enjoyed it, and I just have one more little look at healthcare.gov, and let's take a look at it. There's the website. Oh, wait. Oh, my goodness. It's acting up. I guess we'll have to put up with it this way forever. Thank you.